gentleman in the blue shirt. Hold on. I've got
Me, right?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm Brendan Johnson. I'm with CDC Development Solutions, or our acronym is CDS. Our main mission is in small and medium enterprise development. We work specifically in a large part with oil and gas extraction companies, and our belief is that they should invest locally through supply chain development activities in order to build up the local economies, and it's a win-win situation for both sides of the party. So our expertise is in everything from building the SMEs to providing capacity to business service providers, supply chain development, and all of that. Specifically, the majority of our work has been in Africa, but we've been contracted in the past few years by AID and DoD to do work assessing SMEs and BSPs in Iraq, and our interest is in working with the oil companies or service providers to create this supply chain development. So my question would be, do you see a trend within the government for this type of SME development? And more specifically, do you see any legal indicators that either are currently there or you expect to be there for local content development?
Okay. I guess I'll start your question. I'll take the first part first. These large oil companies there's a movement there to work with the local population, and if you deal with them, you'll see that in many instances there's the legal side, there's the project side, there's the corporate side, and then there's the political affairs side. And then out of that political affairs side, there's a person who's allocated his job is to do just that. I've met them, and nearly all the oil companies that I've dealt with have that capability and have that function. I don't think that would be there would not be there had the government of Iraq not asked for it or encouraged them to do it. So I think there is something there. It's not just something. I think that'll be an integral part. I don't know of anyone in the government who said, "Oh yeah, that's a great opportunity. Let's go do it." But the fact that all these companies are organizing their structures that way, I can only infer such. But if you look down in Basra Government, you look at the local population there. To the extent that we know a lot about them, it's tribal based. It's also Shia, Sunni divides, and so you really have to have some good human terrain intelligence about who those people are, and that function that you just described would be perfect for that.
Gentleman in the navy blue jacket here.
Mr. Roloff.
1 second, sir.
I'm sorry.
Identify yourself.
Short question. What's the nature of the financial disclosure required for a foreign company trying to register in Iraq to do business?
Foreign disclosure requirement? The capital requirement?
When you register, I assume you have to make some sort of financial disclosure.
Depends on what you're filing. If you're
filing for a branch office or?
Yeah, that's a great question. You have to file, for one, you do have to file your disclosures. It depends on if you're a newly incorporated entity. So if I set up an entity in the Bahamas, say, and in 2010, and then directly incorporate that into Iraq, I'm waived from that because it's a new company. If it's over a year old, you have to give your finances, which have to be audited, to the Iraqi Ministry of Trade. Major corporations that have a very large, satellite of smaller companies are giving their shareholders, I guess it's called the S10. They're using that as a requirement.
But you have to give the Iraqi government your audited financial statements?
Correct.
For?
To suffice that you're adequately capitalized to have a foreign entity in Iraq.
And are you seeing resistance to that?
No, I see it as a jurisdictional requirement that the employee and the company's registrar sees. He'll look at it to see if it's in order, and he'll put it in the file. I don't see any investigation into it.
May I ask one follow?
Sure.
Quickly, please.
What if a company sets up a new company that's a foreign company, and that company comes into Iraq? So in that case, the financial statements are essentially zero. I mean, it's...
Yeah, that's what I said in the beginning. If it's a new company, you are waived of that requirement. If it's less than a year old, you don't have to give the finances.
Sorry. I didn't. Thanks.
Thank you. Alexander Kravitz. I have a follow-up question on this tribal. I have actually two quick questions. One is on the tribal issues. What are the rights of the tribes in the region if an oil company goes, and explores and drills and develops the rights to the tribe? Related to that, what possibility would there be to partner with a tribe to develop a certain field? I understand that there's some kind of preferential scheme in the law.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm wondering, you talked a lot about Iraq, but I'm wondering if you could just mention quickly a difference between the Kurdistan region and the north.
Well, that's another huge obstacle we see with the IOCs is, I said there were 14 companies that were pre-approved to do business in Iraq. Did you get that stat? Yeah. 14 companies that were to take part in the oil rounds. There was 15, but one of them did business in Kurdistan, and he was not allowed to work in Iraq. So one of the major obstacles we see in the oil and gas industry is that the Kurdistan semi-autonomous region has a separate petroleum jurisprudence than the federal government. It's different. There's a different parliament. Kurdistan has a petroleum law. It's already in force. Iraq doesn't. So there are two entities. There's a political. To say I don't want to talk about politics, you kind of have to in this regard. There's a political debate between the two about production, and I think the Kurds would much rather go forward, produce. They have two great fields, the Tok field, and I think they also have a pipeline through Turkey and the Ceyhan pipeline. So, I think the Kurds would much rather go forward with that, but they use that, I think, and I'm just speculating here, they use that as a bargaining tool versus federal Iraq, because federal Iraq has not passed their law yet, and they don't want to. They want to pass it, but the problems in Parliament and the lack of government prevent them from doing that. But to the extent that tribes have right to own land, I don't know about that. There are some countries in the Middle East where there are grazing rights and your rights to use land. Iraq is a land notice jurisdiction. It's a civil law society where the formalities of law matter. So to own a land, there should be a stamp somewhere saying that you own it. So I don't know about the ability for tribes to be. They're obviously involved in the management of the land and the use of the land, and I think these companies going in there understand that, and they have government affairs offices dedicated to that purpose. But in terms of owning title to land, I don't think so.